Hi everybody, I am so excited to be recording this today because that means you guys get to see the full long form conversation that I got to hold with Brooke, who is a nursing home director in Greensburg. We all know how confusing Medicare is, and even more so, we see all of the stuff going around year over year on don't be scammed by a Medicare Advantage plan, usually posted by someone who works at a nursing home. We really work to try to educate our clients and give them the absolute best fit for them. And we never want to feel like they are scammed into a plan or they haven't got to review all of their options, supplement, prescription drug plan, or Medicare Advantage plan. So we wanted to sit down with Brooke in order to go over how an Advantage plan versus a supplement or traditional Medicare works within a nursing home specifically. We are so excited to bring this to you, and we hope to have many more one-on-one conversations like this with other experts in the field, whether it be Medicare, under 65 health, auto, home, business. This is just the start of something great. So stay tuned and I hope you enjoy.
Hello everybody, my name is Beth Durinsky and I'm here with Odyssey Insurance and Investments, and we decided today that we wanted to have an open conversation with Brooke, who works at a nursing home, and I'm going to give her a chance to give more of what she does in just a minute. But we want to have a conversation about Medicare, Advantage plans, supplements, traditional Medicare, in coordination with how that works when you have to go into a nursing home. Every year we see a lot of feedback about don't be scammed into an Advantage plan, or please make sure you review. And we really work to educate our clients on the differences, what they're purchasing. We are not someone who just sells you a plan based on $0 cost, based on, oh, here, take this, it's, you're not going to pay anything for it. We really want to educate, and doing this is one of those ways we want to educate. This is going to be super informal. You're going to see Brooke and I just having an open-ended conversation. We really started chit-chatting before this came on, and I was like, we have to stop because I just want our viewers and our clients to see this natural conversation on what our view take is on the difference versus what she sees on her end. So I'm going to let Brooke kind of give a little bit about herself.
Yes, my name is Brooke Tees. I'm the executive director at the Hickory Creek at Greensburg. And I was really excited to come in and do this. I am generally one of those that I don't say the scam part, but say, hey, just be really, careful about choosing a managed plan. And what I mean by that is if going into a nursing home long term, or even for skilled nursing purposes for therapy, let's say from a hip fracture or a knee replacement. Now generally knee replacement science is too cool, they just go straight home. But or if you get pneumonia, have a fall, and you need any kind of rehab to home services, that's where I step in and say some of those managed plans can really limit the services that you can receive at a skilled nursing or nursing home setting. So that's what I am happy to share. That way, if that part's important to you, then I can say why we are team traditional Medicare in that aspect.
Absolutely. So I think we're just going to jump in. I'm going to ask Brooke some questions. I have very much encouraged her to ask me questions back so you guys can see and better understand how nursing home coverage applies to whatever option you choose, because Medicare is confusing in general, and this is just another aspect that you may or may not have to use one day. So when someone gets admitted to your nursing home and they already have an Advantage plan or a supplement, what does that process look like for you in the event of, like, do you have the ability to disenroll them if necessary, or do you guys have to file paperwork with the Advantage plan to get approval? Maybe that's a very broad question. Yes. But I'll let you run with that.
It's pretty broad, but you can go into, so if let's say you're in the hospital and they decide at whatever point that you need skilled nursing, whether it's you have an IV antibiotic and it's just not safe for you to be at home and it's going to be running for 4 weeks, or they want you to do some physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy with us for a couple of weeks to get stronger. Let's say you had a fall, or even let's say you had an infection. So a lot of times, especially in older folks, UTIs are super common, and UTIs can quickly switch or transfer to your sepsis, and then you need some care, and you need both. You need IV antibiotic and you need some therapy to get stronger to return home. So from that setting, at the hospital, you have to do what they call pre-cert. And so if you have, let's say, Anthem or United Healthcare or Humana, there's probably more I'm missing. Those are just the most common ones.
That's fine. You got the general.
Yeah, you'll have to do a pre-cert. So at that point, someone at an office, and God knows where,
Not affiliated
with me, is looking at your paperwork and deciding if they think you need care or not, even though the doctor is saying you do.
Okay.
So, and then when they look at that and if they approve, oftentimes they'll say, okay, we approve for 4 days.
Okay.
And then once you're in, and then we would say, okay, great, we got approval, they're gonna come in for 4 days. At that point, then we have to give notes after 4 days, and then again, another person, may not even be the original person who gave you the pre-cert in the first place, is looking at paperwork and goes, nope, we think you're fine, you should go home with home health care and have the rest of the antibiotics done there. And you don't get a choice.
And you're referring to the process for an Advantage plan specifically?
Specifically. An
Okay.
Advantage plan specifically. We at the nursing facility do not get to make the choice as how long you get to stay. We're at the will of the insurance company.
So when they're looking for approval for maybe
Yeah.
another 3 days or another 4 days, do they take your notes into consideration?
They do. Yeah.
And your professional expertise?
Yes.
But you just don't get to say, hey, you're allowed to have 4 more
Correct.
days.
And it's more so, they'll ask our recommendation. So even if we say they're going to need 2 more weeks, they'll go, okay, well, we'll compromise and give you 1 week. Or
Okay.
we don't get to say the final decision. Many times it works out fine, many times it doesn't. So
Yeah.
where we have had to send folks home, and then unfortunately a lot of those end up right back into the hospital in the first place. So now on the flip side, where you get in, let's say everything's fine, you try therapy, and we just keep doing those every so many days renewals, and then it kind of starts to turn into, you know what, I'm going to be here long term. I'm really not safe to go home. I'm okay to transition into that lifestyle, that this is what I'm having. Then we can sit down with the families and say, hey, would you like to flip at the beginning of the next month to traditional Medicare? And then that way, if you ever needed therapy again, you have many more days. And then with that, Medicare does take our recommendation. It's actually through us saying, hey, we're going to do 2 more weeks of therapy, or hey, they have plateaued, we're going to stop now.
So just to verify, if someone has traditional Medicare with or without a supplement,
Correct.
The Medicare is more apt to take your recommendation of just
Yes.
2 more weeks, basically up to that 100 days regardless. But once you hit the 100 days, you are done.
You're done.
Yes.
And then you have to reset. You got to let 2 months go by, and then you can reset for another 100 days.
Now, can those 2 months go by while you're residing there?
Yep.
And then if the need is still there, then it just redoes it. So they private pay for this? 2
Either
months?
private pay, or if they have Medicaid, Medicaid would take over. So most long-term care patients have Medicaid, and Medicaid what pays for it all of the time. And then when they need therapy services, Medicare cuts in, pays for those days, and then
Okay.
it comes back out.
So if they're residing there, essentially,
Mhm.
Medicare essentially kicks off. They become private pay or Medicaid.
Medicaid, mhm.
And then if at any point in there they need therapy, then Medicare kicks in up to the 100 days
Yes.
as needed.
As needed, yes.
Is there any situation where Medicare says, okay, therapy's done, you no longer need it, we're not gonna go up to 100 days?
100 days? Yes and no. So it's really up to our discretion. We could get, like, let's say we were just like, a facility could say, I want 100 days, right? And then that's why Medicare does their audits. So we would have to, the next following year, what have you, they'll pick a case and they'll say, okay, why did this guy use his full 100 days? And then that's the facility taking the chance that they might come back and say, hey, this really shouldn't have went that long. But that's more of on an ethical standpoint on our part. Our therapy teams know, when we can potentially go into the fraud aspect of it. But that's on us. That's where we do get to make those decisions. It's not the insurance company making the decision for you.
The audit process just helps hold you guys
It helps
accountable.
hold us accountable,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
that we aren't
understood.
abusing the system. And it's the same for Medicaid.
Okay.
So
Okay, well those are good
Yeah.
differences because basically you guys get to determine their need because you're seeing it, whereas you guys submit all your paperwork for the Advantage plan and then someone
Someone
says
out there,
yes or no.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which I'm sure makes it hard for you guys. You see
Yes,
certain instances.
it
where-
is, and in some cases, they all are required to give you 24 to 48 hours, but it's hard to flip on 24 to 48 hours to say, okay, now I got to take mom home.
Yeah.
And I have a business trip in the next 2 days. I don't have anybody home to get her settled. But we're at the will of me saying, well, she could stay at, $235 a day.
Yeah.
Until
we get approval.
Until we get approval or until you get home. And stuff like that has happened.
Yeah.
People have chosen to pay for a couple of days. It's just hard to ask somebody to do that.
Yes. As a side note, in the insurance world, I have found that sometimes insurance in general, no matter what, health, Medicare, auto home,
Yeah.
the person doing what seems pragmatic on the business side isn't always the realistic side.
Correct. Yes.
So
Yes.
I understand your frustration.
Yes,
with
the
that.
frustration, and I mean, we have that even in our own buildings. We laugh. You've got your clinical side, and you've got folks that are heart and head, and their positions deal with, the heart part of this person needs this, and the brain person of, well, it's not financially gonna happen,
Right.
because they're gonna want you to do, any insurance company wants you to do, even commercial plans, that you or myself would
Yes.
have through work.
Yes.
They want us to do as much cheaply and at home as possible. Where in most of our residents, we encourage that, but they have the right to have whatever they want and plans they want. So it gets confusing. But it's definitely the pre-cert part is usually my biggest part to advocate for the long-term care residents. So if their Medicaid's there, but they have United Healthcare, and let's say they had a fall in our building and they needed some therapy, I have to send in a pre-cert. That can take 3 and 4 days to get them the therapy that they need when I could have started the very next day.
Yeah.
So it's just a preference on our part to do it that way. Another misconception is I get on the on the community front, like I told you, my parents are recently 65 and they got an United Healthcare plan, and I encourage that. I mean, they might as well save on the plan. They're incredibly healthy, healthier than myself, so they're very active. They don't really foresee the need to end up in needing skilled nursing. They're going to probably do outpatient therapy, or if a knee replacement, like I said, science is so great, you just go home. And so it wasn't really needed for them. So a lot of long-term care residents, they'll see the commercials, like, you can save, blah, 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 or there's no premiums, or there's no this. Regardless, once you're in the nursing home setting and your Social Security pays this much and your Medicaid pays this much, you still end up with that $52 left over, no matter what plan that you have.
Because you have the spend down.
Because
with
you have
Medicaid.
the spend down, you have to pay for our services. So it doesn't really...
That doesn't matter when they're in the nursing
So
home, is what you're saying as a resident.
You probably saved on your premiums, but it's still in the wash, and you get the 52 back. So a lot of times residents will have that misconception that if I don't have to pay for this, and if I get Anthem, then I'm going to get more, I'm going to save money, I'll have more than the $52 left. You're not. It's just how
it's
the
just
two
going to
work
you
together.
guys.
It'll come, yes. Unfortunately, we're not free care. I wish someday
It would
we
be
were.
nice to let others that way.
Yes, it would be very nice to be able to provide free care for everyone. And then I have one more thing
Keep
to
them
mention.
coming.
Sorry.
No, I love it. Keep them coming.
When you have a managed plan versus Medicare, with Medicare, everyone accepts Medicare, so you have the choice of whatever facility you want to go to. When you have a managed plan, you do not. So,
Correct.
for example, I cannot take Anthem. I don't have an Anthem contract at my building. They haven't had one for years, and it's also kind of, on a home office corporate end, it's messy to get those going.
Yes.
But, so if you really loved that, I have a 4-star rating, I have a dog, which we do have a dog, that lives at our building, and that you love that I only have 36 beds, so that your grandma only has 35 other people to compete with for our attention and
Right.
such. And she's got Anthem. I'm gonna have to tell you, she can't come here unless you want to pay for it on your own.
Let me ask you this: what
Yes.
about an Anthem? So in our world,
Yeah.
we have HMO plans and PPO plans. HMO
Yep.
are in network only. Don't think about
Yep.
going out of network unless it's in the event of an emergency. But PPO is supposed to give people the flexibility to go in or out of network.
Correct.
Are you allowed to take Anthem PPO plans?
Because I don't have an Anthem contract. Period.
So
I
you
can't
just
take, and that's the I think
Okay.
sometimes, and not to say on
No,
your end,
no,
because we
you're
will
fine.
get the calls and we'll say, hey, the person I got this plan from said I have this PPO for out of network.
Mhm.
That's great, but I don't have an Anthem contract, period. So I can't take anything.
So you can't file
'Cause-
at all.
Right, because so for Humana, I'm not in network for Humana either, but I am if you have the out of network benefit.
You still okay.
Yes.
So that is
Because
good to
I
know
do
for
have
us.
a Humana contract. So
Okay.
if you call a facility and they say we're out of network,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you can't go there.
Okay.
But if you hear I don't have a contract, then that's an out. Anthem will not, that company will not pay
For
for
any
any
service.
services.
Well, that is very good
Yeah.
to know because that is something that
But
we
yes.
are not always aware of. We are
Correct.
just aware of, we can look up in network, we're not seeing in network, so that means it would be an out of network
Yes.
service.
Yes. And
Okay.
then like on the Humana and a lot of times, since we're an out of network, and like
Mhm.
you said, I can't remember if it's the PPO or the HMO one that you
That's
do.
okay.
So if we run the benefits on someone and they have Humana and they can come, they have the out of the out of network
Which would be a
benefits.
PPO.
PPO, yep. I always call people and say, hey, you can come here, but you're probably gonna have a copay as I don't want to call it a penalty, but they're gonna say
They're going to pay more than
right,
the person
poor-
who's in network.
Yes, and
Yeah.
so we have a sister facility who is in network, so I'm always like, hey, it's not even a mile down the road. You're not gonna have a single copay whatsoever, but here you're gonna have to pay 20%. Like it's really kind of silly for you to come here.
Well, I think that's good that you
Yeah.
have that relationship
Yeah.
with someone who is in network.
Yeah, we all most areas will be able to tell you, hey,
Mhm.
this is who I recommend if you're with this plan, and that plan. So
Okay, so that is super,
Yeah.
super great information. I learned something new
There
today
you go.
too, which was the point of this.
yes.
So we kind of touched on this before the recording started, and I
Yeah.
wanted to touch on this just so our clients can hear that. So for your parents, for example, they chose an Advantage plan
Mm-hmm. did, yes.
because they are healthy, because
Yes.
they that high cost premium wasn't worth it. They made an educated decision to
Exactly.
do that
Yes.
based on the benefits. If they ever something happens to their health and they ever want to change to a supplement, they may not be able to do so.
Okay. Yeah, and that's
So-
something I wasn't aware of.
So,
yeah.
and the reason is just to elaborate, to give you guys a little more information, is when you first turn 65,
yes.
you are guaranteed to issue into a Medicare supplement, no questions asked. It doesn't matter how healthy, unhealthy you are, tobacco user, whatever. And then Advantage plans don't care about your health.
Yeah.
However, once you are outside of your open, if you choose to go to an Advantage plan for 3-5 years, and then decide you want a supplement, you're no longer in your open enrollment, and you have to answer health underwriting questions.
Okay.
At that point in time, they can say, yes, we will accept you.
Right.
Yes, we will accept you, but we're going to tier rate you higher. Or no, your health is already in a position where we're going to choose to deny you. And every carrier out there, supplement is completely different.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about as far as like Plan G, Plan, obviously traditional Medicare is not going to deny you. You just may have your out-of-pocket costs over Medicare, which is your Part A deductible, Part B deductible, co-insurances and such. Which we don't want to get in the weeds here on those, and we can go over that. But that could be something that they face, that they do need a
Correct.
nursing home down the
Yes.
road, but they decide to do it after they've already had a health event.
Right.
Then
And
that
that's
may
where
be-
and that's where we can step in and help you. You know, if it's a health event that, let's say, it's not realistic for you to return to the community, then that's where we can step in and help you switch over to the traditional Medicare so you can get the most benefits out of your long-term care
Okay.
remainder of life as possible. So, and like I said, the big other things are, you know, what's the most important to you when you're purchasing the plans.
Right.
If, you know, like I said, my 65-year-old parents,
Mm-hmm.
nursing home care and rehab is not I
Yes.
shouldn't say rehab, inpatient rehab.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily important
Right.
to them. On the flip side, my 89-year-old grandmother has Medicare, traditional Medicare with
Right.
an AARP supplement.
Right.
She's set and golden to go that if she needs any kind of short-term stay at rehab, she's good to go. And then she's also set up for long-term, if she would ever need to apply for Medicaid or anything like that. But yeah, so it's different. So that's why I say
It is very case
it's case by case,
Yes.
age by age.
Yes, and that's something else. I'm eventually, before we hop off here, I want to explain how we operate with our clients so you understand our
Yeah.
side of things. But I want to keep going on these questions because I
Sure.
feel like we're on a good roll. When someone has original Medicare, maybe they don't qualify for Medicaid or they can't do the 5-year
Sure.
look back. What kind of cost are they seeing in addition to, like, they have their original Medicare, they're kind of more of a long-term care patient, but they can't qualify for Medicaid.
Correct.
What are you guys seeing on that front and how that's
Yeah.
impacting people?
Definitely impacts people. So, plenty of times you'll have folks who, so my grandma would be one of those. So, she does have her traditional Medicare in place. She's got an AARP supplement. Let's say she has a fall, breaks a hip, needs therapy. And as time goes on, it's decided, and she's either plateaued at therapy or got as good as she's, as strong as she's going to get, but yet the medical staff, myself, my parents, our family, we decide, she shouldn't return home.
Yes.
This is not the safe plan for her. So at that point, then that's where you got to look at the qualifications for Medicaid. Do they have too many assets? And at that point, they do become private pay.
Yeah.
And that really becomes, I've seen, that it's hard. It's, the biggest thing, and sometimes it's her money, right? It's her money that's supposed to take care of her.
Yes.
So, she knows that, hey, that's okay, and at that point when you're private pay, you can stay wherever you want.
Right. Because you don't have any insurance.
You don't have
to
any
take
insurance, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But let's say she, I'm just throwing out dollar amounts. Let's
Yeah.
say there's $200,000 to spend down before she can qualify for Medicaid. She would pay privately for her long-term stay, and then let's say 4 or 5 months down the road she starts declining and needs therapy again. Medicare would pick up, her private pay would stop, and we would bill Medicare for her therapy, and then she would just switch back. And that's, until they spend down, and then they apply for Medicaid, and then they get Medicaid.
Understood. And just to verify on some of the things Brooke's saying, Medicare will pay up to 100 days.
Correct.
There's a copay after day 21?
Yes, if you don't have, like when I was saying my grandma has Medicare with an AARP supplement.
Yes.
If you don't have a additional supplement, and I would recommend that if you're
Right.
going to have traditional Medicare, thank you,
Yes.
that's a good point. If you're going to go that route with the traditional, if the importance to you is I can admit wherever I want to go, I don't have to have a pre-cert, I can go to literally any specialist, any doctor, any hospital, anything like that. If that's super important to you, you definitely need to get a supplement to cover after your 20 days. Because after that, then your copay can be $180, $90 a day in addition. So, yeah, and I don't know if you sell those.
We do.
Okay.
We do.
So
We do.
I would, yeah,
Yes.
I call it the golden goose egg. If you have traditional Medicare and that's what's important to you, and you have a supplement, there's so many. ARP is just the one she has, but I think all those Anthems and Uniteds do those.
There's lots.
That's like the golden goose egg. You are set.
So-
and whatever life throws at you, you are ready to go.
So I just want to recap because I know how this works. I just want to make sure they
Yeah.
understand it. Original Medicare, 0 to 20 days you're covered. Medicare with a supplement, 0 to 20 days. And Advantage plan, you have coverage for 0 to 20 days as long as you receive approval.
Okay.
Correct?
Yes.
Day 21 hits, original Medicare, you have a copay per day rate, not the full private pay.
Right.
So you still have some sort of savings. And then if you have original Medicare with the supplement,
Yes.
then you still have 0.
You were 0 for
Up
all
to
100 days. Yes.
And then with the Advantage plan,
Yes.
it's like original in the sense that you have a copay, so you still have a savings, you still have some coverage, but it's contingent again on getting that approval from someone
every
in the
time.
private company.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And then for all three of those options,
Uh-huh.
once the patient starts to plateau, they're not, they've got as good as they're going to get, the Medicare coverage itself is going to stop. And then at that point, they will return home or switch to long-term care.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. So that really hit on
Yeah.
a good portion of the difference between the different types of plans and what we do. For our client's sake, and also from a different perspective, I think insurance agents get a bad name is there are some agents, and I have met some or I've heard of them where they just say, hey, look how much money I can save you every month, and they don't necessarily walk through the benefits of this. Or they see the ad on the commercial, they call want to enroll, but they don't quite understand what that means for them, because the phone call, even though it is recorded by Medicare, is required. It's confusing, people talk fast, there's lots of that. So I will say in this office, and Rachel, who is recording this, by the way, she can attest to this because I have been trying. Rachel got licensed with this office, and we have been working through Medicare compliance and all of that. When we sit down with a client, I tell them I like to go over the ins and outs of Medicare.
Yeah.
So we start with traditional Medicare, what your Part A, deductible, co-insurance, hospital, Part B deductible, premiums. We kind of put that up here. Then we go, okay, this is a supplement. This is what it covers. This is what it'll cost you per month. And then we even annualize that. We say, after a year, this is potentially what you'll pay for your supplement, which on average is about $1,500 a year, give or take, depending on the age, depending on the company.
Sure.
We also factor in that Part B deductible. We let them know those will go up about 5 to 7% on average. We can't guarantee that per year. Then we say, this is the Advantage plan. This is what you'll pay per month, but these are all your copays.
Right.
How these copays will impact you when things happen, and this is your out-of-pocket maximum. That maybe if it happens, you might have to pay, because out-of-pocket maximums kind of like a deductible, but they're not a deductible.
Right.
So they're not first dollar coverage. You automatically get a lower cost copay.
Sure.
But every time you pay that copay or you pay out of pocket for something that's covered by insurance, it gets applied to that out-of-pocket maximum for a worst case scenario. So when you first turn 65, if you are anticipating a lot of health issues, it may cost you more to get an Advantage plan, because all your copays are going to add up more than what you're paying in premium for supplement.
Right.
And we really try to outline that.
Yeah.
But we also let the clients know this is a guaranteed cost. This is a maybe if it happens.
Right.
So then we have to say, what is the best fit for you? What feels right for you? We want you to understand how this works, what you're purchasing on the Advantage side, what you're purchasing on the supplement side. And I will tell them, John Smith may not be as good as, I don't know, Betty Smith over here.
Right.
And what's right for her is not right for them. Maybe you can't afford a supplement, or maybe you'd rather budget every month and not get a doctor bill besides your deductible. So that is the approach we take.
Absolutely.
Because we feel like it is important to educate.
Yeah.
Again, which is why I really wanted to do this today. But I just feel like giving this to both your patients and my clients, we use different terminology there, is super important, super valid. And we want them to understand when they come to you. That way they can be like, oh, my agent did kind of tell me about this.
Yes.
Or B, and I feel like, unfortunately, there's so many bad eggs out there. That does give us the bad rap, and that's not fair, but we are trying to overcome that stigma.
Yes. Yeah, they're bad eggs on both sides.
Yes.
We have bad eggs too. So the hardest part is, though, like you said, and it's not necessarily, again, I mean, it takes us to sit down and
hash that out,
because I don't know how many times I've heard, well, my agent said this will be covered, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, but it's not. Then, unfortunately, on our end, then we're the bad guy. We don't take this insurance. We didn't, they're wanting to know, why did I get a bill for $4,000 for that 2-3 weeks that I was there? And I'm like, well, remember when we talked about like the copay part? Like, you could have saved if you went in network, but you didn't want to. This is where that bill comes in. I just think people need to truly sit down, think of your health when you're making the decisions, and not just when I say, yes, my 89-year-old grandmother, my biggest concern is a fall with her, but there's so many other things.
Yes.
Do you have COPD? Are you diabetic? How often have you been in the ER? Like,
Yeah.
if you are someone
That's a good
who
point.
makes very frequent trips to the ER, a managed plan may not be the best for you because you have so many Again, someone at an office in,
Sure.
Dubai is deciding, like, I'm just teasing.
No, I get it.
Like,
We
it's
also
on
let
paper, yeah, like, and then sometimes too, things can escalate from a desk review to a peer-to-peer review. Sometimes we'd rather just have a peer-to-peer review where a doctor is talking to them rather than them just reading on paper in their interpretation. Because I'm sure someone's just looking for keywords to say, yep, approved, COVID times was a nightmare about that stuff. I think everyone ended up just paying whatever because nobody knew if they were or weren't.
Gotcha.
Non-Anthem contract people were taking Anthem if you had COVID. If you had COVID, they would pay you. So that was the exception. They don't do that anymore, by the way. But that also, or there's always that fine line, or someone will say, well, my agent says it's going to get paid, and then we call, and then the person we talk to goes, well, yeah, it'll probably get paid. And I'm like, I'm going to need a guarantee. In insurance, there is no guarantee. That's how we feel at the nursing home end.
Right.
Because they can back out. They always find a loophole.
Yeah. So
Not your situation, but the one at the person at the desk finds the loophole.
person filing the
the filing. So
claim.
we just want everyone to look at what's best for them. And again, if or if you're in your gut feeling, feel like your health and your setup in life could lead you to long-term care or needing nursing home care, we are just team traditional Medicare makes it easier
for everybody
for
involved.
everyone. But if that cost of convenience is not important to you, I get that. We can pay what we can pay.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah, I totally understand.
You just have to be acceptable. You do get what you pay for.
Okay.
Like whatever you pay for, just make sure that's what's important to you.
Yes. And I do tell people that because some people really like the extras that come with an Advantage plan. I'll say, as long as you know you're making a decision based on the dental and vision coverage on this plan and not the health benefits.
Correct.
I try to reiterate that to them
and
because,
that's great.
when this happens, is your dental and vision benefits going to be what matters? And they'll say, oh yeah, I'm super healthy, doesn't matter. Or, oh, I really didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
So we try to lay that all out there. So just a couple of questions to wrap up.
Sure.
One, just being totally random, it's going to be out there. Just to make sure. So Medicare will only approve a nursing home stay from a hospital if they've had a 2-night, 3-day admission, correct?
So it's actually 3 midnights.
3 midnights.
They went back to that. I'm glad you brought. I was gonna swing that in, and then I was like, well, I don't know.
I should have brought a pen so I could write.
So that's
things.
another. That is another thing to consider of managed versus traditional. Managed doesn't require that. You can stay one night. Sometimes on some of the Anthem plans, you can go straight from the ER to a skilled nursing facility.
That's great.
It's tricky. Because then the way the insurances probably look at that is, you know what, a nursing home is cheaper than a hospital. So if you don't need to be admitted in the hospital, I'll just send you straight to the nursing home to like iron things out. So with managed plans you don't, but you have the pre-cert, which can take 2 to 3 days anyway. So you're in for the same amount of time. So I don't understand some of that. But it's like I said, and if you don't qualify for an ER to, for a direct transfer. But yes, with Medicare, they did go back to that. They waived that all through COVID, which we absolutely loved. Because sometimes like the hospitals have a hard time figuring out how to quote unquote keep you, how to bill you for 3 midnights when you may only needed 1 or you need 2. So it's really slowed down. And again, what they did that for is because they didn't have space in the hospital to keep holding all these people.
Gotcha, so that's why they waived it.
So now it's not waived, but they'll generally keep you for the 3 nights if they know you
need a nursing. Okay.
Yeah.
So to follow up on that, whenever someone's already in a nursing home, and then say something happens and they get a UTI and they have to go back to the hospital and they have another extended stay, their 100 days reset on original Medicare. Is that correct?
They do not.
They do not?
They do not. So you don't need to stay the 3 nights. So if you are already, let's say you had your 3 nights, you admit to a nursing home, you're there for a month, you've used 30 days, you get a spout of pneumonia and you need to go back to the hospital, they don't have to keep you for 3 midnights because you're still, as long as you don't return home. Return home is the key factor.
Okay, see, I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's good to know.
And then when you come back to us, let's say in one day you just go for the night, you're back to the nursing home for the day, then you just pick right back up at day 31 and you just keep going. The in between the 100 is that 2 months, the 60-day reset, which also that's another thing to consider and manage. Some managed plans only allow you to have 100 days a calendar year.
Okay.
So we run into that sometimes for skilled nursing.
Gotcha.
For skilled nursing, I'm not saying like for other hospital stuff.
Right.
But we have run into that where some of the plans only let you go 100 days in an entire year. And that's what we get discouraged about with our long-term care patients when families, you know, a lot of times it's not you guys, it's a commercial. The commercials is where everyone,
and
because they do not put a lot of stuff in there in that 25 seconds.
No.
All it's big is no premiums, no premiums, no premiums, no premiums.
Extra benefits, lower Part B.
Yes. So
those frustrate us too, just so you know.
I'm sure they do.
Clients will call them and then they'll want our help, and I'll be like, you switch plans. I can't help you. Like, I want to, but I'm not your agent anymore.
Right.
But they don't know that they did it.
Yes.
Most of the time, they have no idea that they did it.
And we have the same issue. They'll call from their beds, on their phones because they saw a commercial. Most of them get targeted and they receive the call.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, you can save me some money. And we're like, no, you can't.
Especially staying in a nursing home.
Yes.
They might be able to save money if they're residing at home.
Yes.
But if they have to do the Medicaid spin down in the nursing home, whatever they save is just going back to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are really, really good points. So in that 60 days, I want to backpedal to this 3 night. They have their waiting period in between the 100 days. If they get an admission, they still have to wait the full 60 days? If they get
That's a great question. I always kind of get this one confused, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna lean to yes. There could be some loopholes that. But again, you can always call any nursing facility that you're at, or if you have any questions on that, the office managers are the best ones to answer that one. So because they want the uninterrupted
60
days. So when you go home and then let's say you get back into the nursing home within those 60 days, you can still use your days as if you haven't exhausted any of them within those 60. But I don't know if I'm describing that right. So if you spend 30 days in a nursing home and you go home, and then let's say a week or two later you're back in the hospital and you need to go back into skilled care, you would actually still start at day 31 again because it hasn't been an uninterrupted 60 days. If you go home after 30 days, and then let's say 5 months goes by, and then you need to go back into the hospital, and you need to go back into nursing, you would get your 100 days would have started over because you've had an uninterrupted 60 days.
Okay.
So it's the uninterrupted, and the uninterrupted is going home, staying home without having to go back to the hospital.
Okay. So that's good because in our world, I have been told by others, and that, they ran out of 100 days. They just need to go have a 3-night stay and they'll reset. So
I'm pretty sure that's not. I mean, again,
maybe loopholes. Like
there could be loopholes that I'm not. That.
Why won't we saying that anymore?
Yeah, and I will, go. I will go back to my office and make sure that I am not interpreting that wrong as well. And if I'm wrong, I'll call you.
Okay, and we'll add that
to
the notes or whatever.
I'll record myself and send you you could pop it in the video and say edit.
Okay, perfect. So, but that was just one that because that comes up, they're like, we've maxed out our 100 days. Let's go have a 3-night stay and it resets.
No.
Was our impression.
No.
So, 2 more follow-up questions that I keep trying to make sure I don't forget. When you move someone from a Medicare Advantage plan to original Medicare, do you facilitate them getting a prescription drug plan with that?
Yes. So the office man will.
The only reason I ask is because I have had, particularly one client sticks out to me. She was moved from I believe an Advantage plan to original Medicare while she was there. She was never placed in a prescription drug plan during her whole stay, and then she happened to I don't think they anticipated her to come home, but she did come home, and then she had like a 5 or 6 month penalty because she went without a prescription drug plan.
Okay.
So because if people are over the age of 65 and eligible for Medicare and they don't have a prescription drug plan, and they have a gap that's more than 63 days, they then start incurring a penalty every month for the rest of their life.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking.
That makes sense. So honestly, when they're long term, we set them up because it's usually either private pay of a plan or Medicare or Medicaid. So actually, with a Medicare plan, when you're there, the nursing home actually takes over the cost of your prescriptions. So then, no, we do not set you up. If we switched you over to traditional or even your managed plan, we absorb the cost of all prescriptions. We actually consume all the cost of any kind of treatments that you would need during that time frame because Medicare is just paying for
your services
and the therapy portion of it. So, you know what, I never thought about that once they discharge. I mean, we do set them up from a discharge level to get them going.
Yeah.
But I don't know at what point when the office manager who does all the billing stuff sets them back into that.
I would encourage you from an agent perspective to look into that.
I will.
Only because if a client does miraculously get to go back home and they do make this recovery, but then they've been 6 and 7 months because they were anticipated, we thought long-term care, they now have a penalty for the rest of their life to go get their prescriptions at the pharmacy.
Correct.
And there's nothing we can do about that at that point. It's just there.
It's just there. Yeah, and my facility is definitely geared towards long-term care.
Yeah.
Because we're so small, we don't have any private beds, so I don't really have a lot of rehab to home.
Yeah.
So most of ours have a Medicare plan with Medicaid, so I don't really see and at that point, Medicaid is does your prescription. So I really didn't think about that.
As a side note, it is good to know.
That is good to know that I haven't thought about. I mean, we don't.
But even if you're not,
that very often.
You're doing more rehab to home. If it is a strategy,
that is a good question.
At that point, for you to switch to original Medicare, just make sure someone is helping you facilitate that prescription drug enrollment when you disenroll from your Advantage plan, because that creates an election period. Going in and out of a nursing home gives us the ability to enroll people as an election period. It is a shortened window. You can't do it. Once you pass that 60-day window, you lose your election period and you start incurring that penalty.
Yeah. I agree. I was gonna say that if you do go that route, just make sure you ask that question.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that the buildings have that mindset, but I can understand where you're coming from when they return home. But just make sure if you say, I agree, I think I want to switch, but how will my prescriptions work if I ever go back in the community? That's a good question.
And there are,
because we're used to consuming the cost for you. So
yes, and there are some in most areas. I can't say all without actually checking $0 prescription drug plans.
Yeah.
So they could be enrolled in this $0 drug plan that they're never going to use while they're there. But when they come back out, they haven't had a penalty for not having one, but we now have what's called an election period where we can pick one that better suits them and change plans, but we didn't have a gap without coverage. So maybe they're not utilizing the $0 plan while they're there, but they still have it, they still have coverage, they're not incurring a penalty. And of course you have to check your area, your zip code, and make sure, but most the $0 prescription drug plan became available this year in some of our surrounding counties. So as an option. So the final question I think I want to wrap up, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement, is to kind of recap on something that you've already said, is that make sure you know the coverages that you're purchasing, how and what you might have to pay for down the road. Even if you don't anticipate to utilize long-term care, there's always a possibility that something major could happen and that switches. What that looks like for your options, co-pays you may have, in-network facility requirements, and it's not that you don't have coverage at a nursing home, it's that you are waiting on someone to approve it on the backside. So when someone does approve it on the backside, do they get to retroactive coverage? Does that happen? Like when you send the pre-cert, you're waiting a couple days, do we get coverage, do we not get coverage, and they approve it, do they backdate that approval?
Say that again, sorry.
So someone has an Advantage plan, they're choosing to keep it and utilize it through the nursing home stay. They then are waiting, they're okay waiting for a couple days on that pre-cert gets approved,
Yeah.
does it get backdated to when it was filed for the 2 days prior, or does it just pick up and move forward?
They cannot admit until the pre-cert is approved.
Okay, so then if someone is there for 4 or 5 days, pre-cert is up, we're waiting on another one, they either private pay or leave and come back.
Are they at the hospital?
No, they're at
home.
They're at your place.
Okay.
It's up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I
I'm
should have
following you.
clarified.
Nope, you're good.
4 or
So
5
that's a
days.
good question. There are different ways to do that. So if you're at the hospital and it's a pre-cert, you stay at the hospital. If you're at home and you decide, and at home, you can't admit from home.
Okay.
And let's say a doctor writes an order, wants you to go in, you have to stay at home until the pre-cert is there or private pay.
Okay.
If you are at the nursing home long care, and let's say you're on Medicaid, Medicaid will pay for it until the date goes through that they're approved, and then we'll flip you that date.
That date, it doesn't
And then
back.
it does not back it.
Okay, that's good to know. So you do have coverage. It's a little sticky. There may be some delays, but you just have to be aware of how your nursing home coverage is for the type of plan you pick, and if that's important to you. I tell my clients, if that nursing home stay, you've had a bad experience with a parent or someone not getting that is really important to you, let's make a decision based off that. If you don't want to make your decision based off a nursing home stay, there's a ton of other factors that come into making your decision, but it is a factor that needs to be seriously considered.
Yes, absolutely. And it's no different than your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance. What's important to you. If you obviously live next to a river, you're going to want, or body of water, flood insurance is going to be incredibly important to you. If you are someone who is frequently in the hospital, long-term care should be important to you.
Yep.
Or skilled nursing benefits at a nursing home should absolutely be important to you.
And I would encourage, and I'm sure you could probably get behind this, if you have children or you have someone that's going to help with your care in the event that happens down the road, to include them in the conversations now. That way the children are not trying to fight the nursing home and being like, well, I didn't know mom and dad picked this, or
exactly.
I didn't know what they were doing. So I
That's
would
a lot.
encourage that.
Yes,
Because we do see that.
We do too. Especially when we're the age of the cell phones, so a lot of times I don't think it was an issue too much before. Telemarketers didn't necessarily have the landlines to the nursing home rooms. No nursing home really has landlines anymore.
Okay.
Everyone has their own cell phones.
Yep.
So you're gonna get those scam calls, or you're gonna get those calls even at 87 years old on your cell phone. They're gonna call you. And there's been plenty of times where we've had a resident switch to an Anthem. And
while they're laying in your
while
bed?
they're laying in our while they're in our facility playing bingo, and then they need therapy, and we go and we're like, okay, let's get ready to flip you to get therapy services, and then it'll show up that you have Anthem and you no longer have either the Medicare plan or United Healthcare plan or Humana plan that you already had that we accept. And then we'll call families and POAs and we'll be like, hey, did you know? And then we'll always hear, I'm going to take that phone away from her.
Yes. We see it too, or a child will come in and be like, what did my mom and dad pick? And then we also have to be careful because the child was not included in the initial conversation.
Yes.
Because of HIPAA and stuff. We can't just tell them everything just because they say they're the son or the daughter or whatever. We have to have documentation at that point. So I do encourage you, when you're turning 65, I know it's super overwhelming, the amount of stuff you're getting in the mail, the information you're being flooded with.
Yeah.
But I would encourage you to speak to a private agent. This conversation
sure.
is happening in Indiana. I'm personally licensed in Ohio as well, but your facility is in Greensburg, correct?
Yep.
Greensburg, Indiana. So I would encourage you to, in any person who's going to be help with your healthcare services or your caretaking, your children, a nephew, a sibling, whoever that is, I would encourage you to bring them in on the conversation on making this decision as well. It just makes any future decisions that they have to help with easier.
Yeah. The more you have planned, the better. Even to the point of, getting involved with elderly lawyers. If you have. There are ways to protect certain assets. There are ways to already set yourself up for, I already know my plan for if this happens to me and I need Medicaid and I need things like that. have your POA or have everyone picked out, the sooner the better. It helps us on our end. Even if there's family drama, it's okay to pick one kid over the others to decide and say, hey, this one is, a little better at making decisions or rallying the others, or not to say that they only have the only say. They're just, it's okay to appoint that person pretty soon, because all it takes is a blink of an eye to be able to make your own decisions and not.
Yes.
It doesn't take much to
fall, a head injury, something of that nature that you're no longer
a stroke, anything can happen in a blink of an eye to make you able to make your decisions and not make your decisions. So. Yeah.
Well, Brooke, I really appreciate your time
Thank you.
today. Thank you so much. I hope this has been great information for all of you. I do hope to do more of these in the future. Maybe we'll look at an elder law attorney or someone else in the Medicare, Medicaid field, or whoever. If you guys have recommendations or you want to see some questions answered by someone, please feel free to reach out to us. But this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
It's been informative for me.
Yeah.
I hope it's been informative for you, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.